Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Calvin, We the Species. Uh, where do I begin? I've been, I don't even know where to begin. I'm with Matt Crick, we kind of met online. Of course, I'm doing this in conjunction with the Garden State Film Festival that I love dearly, which is coming up in the end of March. And we're interviewing filmmakers and actors, actresses, directors, screenwriters, composers, documentarians, the essence of independent filmmaking, which is the Garden State Film Festival. And Matt and I connected, and we set up a time to do this interview, which is now, by the way. It's now. It's Sunday, the 15th. And a funny thing happened and I've been doing this stuff for, well, I got 730 of these things under my belt. Interviews. I'm just plugging myself. What the hell? 730 of these interviews slash videos under my belt. And this never happened. We've been just sitting here BSing before we pressed the on air button for 2 hours. Duh. By the way, Matt, that should have been recorded. The hell
No,
with
I'm
that.
glad. I'm glad it's in our memories. We have
Oh,
it
it
in our
sure is.
memories,
It
and
sure is. I
and
mean, I'm taking
somehow,
notes. I told you I'm
somehow it'll
taking
get
notes.
reproduced in the future. Maybe, who
Yeah.
knows?
This was great repartee. This was great stuff. It wasn't done. So, Matt is has produced The Last Musician, and what the premise. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. The premise. We talked about that for a whole bunch. The premise is so today, with everything going on in our worlds today, and he can tell you about the premise. It's here, and no matter how you shake it and pour it and filter it out, that premise is here. And we're talking about emotion. Wow. So Matt got a PhD from Rutgers. My alma mater. Got a PhD from Rutgers. He can tell you about that. And he's been a professor now for 14 years in film production, et cetera, at William Patterson. And there's just so much energy in film, 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 film. Film is our world, our lives. Film is such a part of my life. It transformed my life from watching Casablanca. I've never been the same. So it's such a part of me. And we just kept talking and talking and talking. And I suspect we could have gone to about 6 or 7
We could
without
have.
having eaten.
Yeah, without. Yeah, I would have had to grab a sandwich for sure.
Yeah, I just looked down a yogurt. So that's the energy that's here. Enormous energy. You are. You know what you're like? I'm kind of laughing. And you might not even know this, but you're like the World Book Encyclopedia. Do you remember that?
I
No.
do.
You do?
I do. I don't know that I'm that way, but thank you very much. That's kind of you.
Oh, yeah. And I laugh about that because that was my generation's. That was or doorway to the world.
Sure,
20
that was
volumes.
like the internet, right?
Yeah, 20 volumes, which
Yeah,
is it's nothing in today's world. Well,
sure.
nevertheless, that's what just listening to you I just can't stop. So we had to eventually press the recording button
Sure.
and
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for the world out there, this is one hell of an interview. Fascinating, fascinating filmmaker, documentarian, professor, PhD from Rutgers, the whole package. It's kind of like a dream come true for me, and I guess that's why I wouldn't stop talking.
Well, I hope that I can live up to the expectation.
Well, I'm sure you can. So why don't you do a little background, Matt?
Sure.
A little background, and then we'll kind of do some stuff.
Okay, sure. So it's great to be on your show, Calvin, and to have an opportunity to talk about the film The Last Musician. I I was a horrible college student back in the day, didn't do well at all. University asked me to leave a couple times just because I wasn't putting in the work. And part of it was because I hadn't found what I loved. And eventually I did. And as you said, I ended up going to Rutgers after my undergrad. and got my PhD and studied sort of the theory side of media creation and media making and some of the philosophy, undergirding all of that. And then in the last, and made a documentary, a feature-length documentary starring Benicio del Toro about the creature from the Black Lagoon and the fans associated with that.
Wow.
And worked at 2020 for a while and really got sort of the hardcore. This is how you make long form production for news magazine style. And then I thought, I want to do this on my own, and went and made a couple other smaller documentaries. And then most recently, only in the last 3 years, I went back to school to FDU, and they had a that's Fairleigh Dickinson for those of you who aren't in this part of the world. They had an MFA in film directing, because what I realized was that I didn't have as much experience on set for narrative filmmaking as I had for television and other kinds of things I had been doing for most of my career. And so it was a great program. I learned a lot from filmmakers in that program, and got my MFA at FDU because I had finally found a very narrow lane that I wanted to be in, which was a director. And so The Last Musician is now going to be in the Garden State Film Festival, and I'm so grateful because that is my first sort of legitimate narrative with SAG actors, with a wonderful script, with wonderful craftspeople, and a wonderful first AD and DP and production designer and all of that. And we had all of the right elements, all of the right sort of mix of people and personalities, some dedicated actors, and then the alchemy that you need to make something really good and you can be proud of. And so that's kind of why I'm here to talk about that. So,
Okay. Uh, who did you write, or who wrote The Last Musician?
so the Last Musician was written by a writer director out of California. His name is Ryan Gomes, Gomes, and he's just a wonderful writer. And I was looking for a script and had read several really good pieces, and then I was just talking with him because I knew him from FDU, and I was talking to him, and he said to me, I have a project, something that I've written. Can I send you the treatment? And I said, sure. And like the next day, he sent me the treatment, and it was, I think, 40 pages at that point. And, most short films are 15 to 18 pages, and that's long. That's considered long. So it was really wonderfully written. He had a real sort of panache with dialogue and characters, and so it was really compelling to read. And I thought, okay, this is it. And I talked to the producer and I said, this is a really good project, and I think we can shoot it in enough days. And I think that what really helped me early in the process was that I had so much background on the production side, on working in production and working under tight deadlines, always with limitations, never enough time to light, never enough time to shoot, never enough time to produce, all of those things. And out of that, and I firmly believe this, and I share this with students that I teach, out of those creative limitations is born some of the greatest stuff. If you have everything that you need, a lot of times you don't get what you want. So sometimes it's really good to have limitations, because then you realize, oh, wow, instead of, I guess I don't have to do it that way. I can do it like this. I'm not advocating for running on no, limited budget or not enough budget or not enough people. I'm not saying that we should all make films like that, but you can, with limitations, especially independence, we're all sort of working under those conditions. But if you don't start with a good script, it's really hard to make that a good story visually, in my experience.
Good script. I hear that all the time. You need a good script. Um, what makes what makes I'm trying to spit this out. What makes The Last Musician rather unique and different?
Well, I
The for me the content you know it, it's wow.
yeah, there's so it's a story about family mapped onto a society that has become bereft of emotion and human connection. So that is under constant surveillance. So if you can imagine living in a family, being in a family that's already dysfunctional, sort of at a maximum level, and being within a society that is also a surveillance society, and that's a constant feature of your life, being watched, having to be careful about what you say, and you're getting no relief from your family
Mm,
because they're all part of that society too. This is what makes it thematically interesting because I think arguably the majority of us can say we've got some folks in our family that are a little bit, it's a little bit dysfunctional in some ways, and everybody defines that differently, but we can all agree there's a little bit of dysfunction probably, right? So we can resonate and connect with that as an audience. And then certainly living in the United States now, you get a healthy dose of concerns about surveillance, concerns about the introduction of AI into our daily lives, all of those things, which influences. So it makes it timely and what I call, and a lot of people would commonly call this an evergreen piece, so that we could watch this film. I'm hoping we can watch this film today and it will resonate, and we can watch it 10 years from now and it will also resonate. Now, I hope 10 years from now, I've also done some other things. That's my hope. Just to add, to the content, the work that I've done. But yeah, I'm hoping that it lasts for a long time.
and by the way, I'm just as I'm breathing the air here, some of the keys you said, the motion, surveillance. I say to my wife all the time, I'm on Google and I Google something and then something else, and then all of a sudden, completely out of context, something comes up for me, and how could that be? It's now showing me stuff that I didn't ask for, but or in other words, they're watching. By the way, I do this stuff with Kay Wagner, Bolo Author Network, and she's just such a fan of AI, and she's saying AI is just watching everything you do, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. So actually, by the way, I just came up with this. It's a movie thing, like The Blob, that movie with Steve McQueen.
Yep.
By the way, AI is the Blob.
Yeah.
I just made that up.
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
like it.
I think
AI,
you should trademark that.
I like it. AI is the Blob. It just keeps absorbing everything it touches. It absorbs into it.
Yeah, and I think, as far as filmmaking is concerned, storytelling and art is concerned, one of the one of the aspects of AI that most people don't really grasp, and I don't even fully grasp it myself, is the speed at which it is evolving and adapting and being trained to think and package and put together ideas faster than we could possibly imagine. So, whatever conversations we're having about AI today, whatever we're talking about today and its influence, especially in the area of filmmaking, um, these are going to be different conversations probably in 6 months, right? That's how fast it's moving. And that's something that we are not prepared for. And I remember reading something recently, and the writer was talking about how the best guardrail against unfettered AI takeover and that kind of thing is for us to focus on the development of responsible oversight from responsible parties, either in the government or wherever that is, outside, outside organizations, whoever it is. But that's really where we should be putting our time and our money and our efforts in developing those guardrails, because that's the only thing that's going to stop it. And so companies like Anthropic, which makes Claude AI, they have said recently, I don't know what the status is as of today, but recently they've said to the US government, we're not going to sign the contract that you want us to sign for defense, because you're saying that you're going to have unmanned, you're going to use our AI to have unmanned weapons. And that's against our philosophy as a company. Now, they might change their tune, but they initially said no, rewrite the contract to the government. So I'm kind of a glasses half full guy, Calvin. And so I sit here and I say, okay, that's a good sign. That's someone, the private industry, big tech pushing back against. And it doesn't matter to me whether they're doing it in service of, okay, this is our niche now. We're going to be the company that pushes back against big government. That's fine. Be that company. We need that company, right? So for filmmaking, I'm not saying don't ever use AI. AI has no place in filmmaking. I think that's ridiculous to make that assertion at this point. But let's not strip out human influence and human behavior and actors and what they can bring to a story and all of that, because I think people can tell the difference. I
Correct.
can.
I
I think they
agree.
do. Yeah.
I agree. And I do agree. I see some little tidbits of AI. It does some, I get some reels and they bring back Natalie Wood and they bring back a whole bunch of celebrities and you're at a party in 1965 and it's them. And they're all Sinatra's there and Burt Lancaster there and they're at a party and they're all talking. It's not real. It's not real and it bothers me. It bothers me because it looks real. And somebody
Yeah.
that doesn't know better, you think you're watching it's so and that's why The Last Musician rises so high in the bravery of the subject matter.
Well, I think that, I mean, that's very nice of you to say. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. I think that it is, I've sort of in my life have come across into these moments and these situations where I have a choice and I can make a choice to put my time and energy and whatever creativity I can into something that would be more palpable to people, would be more interesting to people, might make a little bit of money, you know. And I have made those choices in the past. And it's never been the right choice. Never. Nothing horrible happens to me, nothing awful happens, but it's never been the right choice. And so I just decided at some point that, whatever it is that I'm involved in, there's going to be some larger value. My hope is to make something that has larger value. And I'm not naive about it. I understand that it will resonate with some people and may not resonate with others. But my goal and my desire is to make something that does connect with people on some level beyond just appealing to prurient interests or other kinds of sort of emotional titillation, that makes people think, feel, or do something. It's a tall order, Calvin, but I
but
figure, why not try?
it is a tall order. Make, feel, and do. Yeah, again, I'm taking notes. I got to take notes. So think, feel, do. Really tall order because they're taking thinking away from us.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
they really are. And they just anyway. Uh, why do you think? And I'm an indie author and proud of it, and I'll never. You never say never. I'll never go to an agent because agents have this wonderful ability for me to extend both middle fingers before I even meet with them. And I can tell you some funny stories about query letters and agents and stuff. To me, agents are some of the most detestable figures on earth. Nevertheless, um, what role does independent filmmaking have now in our culture?
So, I think that what we are, what's pushing against uh, individual human creativity and unique voices is a conglomeration, a giant conglomerate of media producers, right? And the basic premise is never or extremely rarely to make something for the good of all or something that has a message that will resonate or something that is a different kind of storytelling. And I don't mean just like let's make a nonlinear story or let's make a science fiction film that's set in this location instead of that location or something like that. I mean something that is generally that from the jump the premise is we're going to create something that is unique, or we're going to find something to create that is unique and has a unique spirit and a unique voice. And that could be in a lot of different ways. It could be how the characters look physically, it could be it's from a different country or whatever it is. Everything in the United States, anyway, in terms of entertainment, has for the last 40 years moved in the direction of a commerce generating venture and a it has a financial uh, impetus at the very start. Everybody is talking about the value of it financially. That's why we need independent filmmaking, because we start with a different question, we start with a different purpose than you would have in other kinds of films. And really good independent filmmakers, which I hope to be someday, right, is they're able to find a space where they tell a story at just the right time that's different. It isn't driven by money, by commerce, at just the right time when the world is spinning around to that direction and it's open to it. Nobody knows when that is or how to make that happen, which is why we just have to keep doing it and keep churning it out. The problem that I've come across in the relatively short time I've committed to independent filmmaking is that in the United States, the resources that we have for independent filmmakers are really few and far between. It's not it's very difficult to make a living as an independent filmmaker and not do anything else to put bread on the table, right? It's very hard to do that. And I know this from experience, but also from people that I've spoken to as well. And so it's anecdotal, but it could be something I'm sure that's written down somewhere. So that is why we need it. Those are some of the reasons that we need it, but there is definitely a lacking. And I put this film in sent it to numerous festivals. And I would tell you, as far as Garden State Film Festival goes, I never, ever had the kind of outreach, the kind of involvement, the kind of dedication to independent filmmaking and supporting the films that I've had with Garden State. And I'm not Garden State. I'm just not sort of saying that because this is a forum for me to say it. It's absolutely true. I never knew anybody really in any of the other festivals, but I've gotten emails from people, and I've had it, the film accepted in other festivals. I've gotten emails from people, but Garden State has just been fantastic. So yeah, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to be there for 4 days. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to talk to people because it seems like they want me to do that. It seems like they're welcoming me.
They are. They are.
So I want to take, I want to be there. You know.
They are. I love uh um I love the Garden State Film Festival, and I love what Diane and her vision 15 years ago, and now she's turned over some of the reins to Lauren, and I love they're at such a wonderful point, and we'll talk about that too. It's a segue. Yeah, at such a wonderful point. They're growing and they're committed to independent filmmaking. and there's so much wonderful talent out there, and that's what they're trying to nourish and encourage. Um, and coincidentally, which is a segue to the next question, and
Sure.
it was transform. It was transformative. I was there 7 or 8 years ago, and I was wearing this same hat. I wash it every once in a while.
That's good. That's
I do
good.
wash it, but I was wearing this hat, and I met lifelong friends. Became friends with Keith Armenides, a wonderful indie filmmaker. Lifelong friends, just great stuff. And then some women came over to me, and I was there, for the opening. I love the red carpet stuff. The hors d'oeuvres. You pretend you're in Pasadena or California or something, and it's just great. It's a great feeling, a lot of energy. Uh, and some women, asked me if I was a Rutgers professor. And I said no, and unfortunately, that's before I was. And we exchanged business cards, and a week later, she called me, Dr. Gloria Bachman, MD, OBGYN, Director of the Women's Health Institute at Rutgers Robert Johnson Medical School. And a few blinks of an eye before I know I'm on the advisory committee of the Women's Health Institute, not knowing a hell of a lot about women's health, but learning. But that was the Garden State Film Festival. So, segue. Um, uh, um, New Jersey is at the precipice. I love that word, and poised, because there's a lot of buzz about filmmaking in New Jersey. I ain't Netflix in another year down the street from me. Talk about your feelings about that.
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me okay? I think I lost
Yeah,
one of my iPods.
no,
Okay, good. I've
we're
lost
good.
one of my AirPods. I want to make sure.
Okay, you're good.
So like everybody else, I am thrilled at the idea of, this production, this level of production coming to New Jersey and all of it. So all of that is really exciting. What I'm, at this point in my trajectory, my creative trajectory, what I'm interested in is what does this mean specifically for independent filmmakers? I know what it means potentially if you're somebody who's a set builder, or you're somebody who's a production designer, or you're somebody who's going to be able to get into the, IATSE or that kind of thing. So I'm curious to find out, how this is going to play into the lives of independent filmmakers, specifically directors. And if you're a director producer like I am, and you have some producing chops, then I could see how that would be helpful, to have more high level production coming. There's sort of this question of, if you are a company, meaning a production company coming from someplace else, will New Jersey be able to offer the kind of incentives, financial and otherwise, to a production company to ensure that they're not going to either stay in California or go to Canada or whatever other place it is. I just read an article recently about production in Georgia, and there was a moment in Georgia where, made in Georgia, there were just tons of films that were getting made in Georgia. That's all gone away because various studios decided, for financial reasons, that they were no longer going to be, using Georgia as a site for whatever. I don't think it's because there was a dearth of stories that could be shot in Georgia. Um, so I think there's a lot of good in the buzz about what's happening in Jersey. I'm just one of those folks that sort of sits back and says, okay, so if I'm not in this category, or if I'm not doing these kinds of things, what will the relationship be for me? Will there be opportunities? And if there are, that's fantastic. If there's not, I'm glad everybody is going to have an opportunity in more productions, because all boats will be lifted, Calvin. We'll all be helped by that.
Yeah.
So I don't see a downside.
Yes, I agree. It's going to open up so many doors, and Netflix there, and I think Lionsgate put up a big studio up in Hudson County. And somebody else spent $1 billion down in South Jersey,
Right.
and I take my hats off to Governor Murphy, uh, who came up with all these wonderful tax incentives to bring this kind of wonderful work to Jersey. So it's all good stuff.
Right.
Um, we touched on it, and just to go over it again, ingredients of a good film. And I know
Well,
think, feel, do. That's
yeah,
part of it.
yeah. That the think, feel, and do is definitely part of it for me. I should qualify
By the
my
way, stop. The audios went a little south there.
yeah my how's it now?
Not
How,
good.
hold on just a second. Let's see. Uh,
I
should
can't
how
help.
about now?
Go ahead, talk.
Yeah. How's it sound now? Good.
Fine,
Okay.
fine,
Good. Nice. Good.
fine.
I'll qualify my answer about the ingredients for a good film by saying that I don't think anybody knows what all of those ingredients are. Otherwise, every single film ever made would be a success. So we know some of the things that typically lead to success, right? Whatever, however you define that, right? For me, if I don't have a good script, what I think is a good script, but also what other people that I trust and have sort of good taste about these things, what they think is a good script. If I don't have that, I'm not interested in moving down the road. And it's not because I'm being precious. It's just that I know it's so hard to take something that someone has created and somehow change that into something that you think is better. And so working on the dialogue is different, making the dialogue better is different, adding some scenes. These are different, these are things that happen all the time, I imagine, right? So for me, it starts with a good script and really, really strong actors that come prepared, they know the text, and they have an idea. And that's really it. Those are the three things I'm looking for from actors, right? And then the last thing would be that you hope that there's enough positive camaraderie. As a director, that's kind of part of my job is to make sure that it's a positive set, that it's, we're there to work, we're working hard, we're working as fast as we can, as safely as we can, but it's a positive set so that the experience feels good for people. And I think that that can lead to the best possible outcome. And for me as a director, being open to things not going the way that I expected and that being okay and figuring out a way to problem solve, that's kind of my job and that's expected. But definitely a good script, strong actors, and then an excellent production designer, an excellent first AD, and an excellent director of photography. Everybody else, strong skills, the best I can possibly get for the film. But those three people, those are really, really important positions for me.
I just wrote that stuff down. Interesting stuff. Um, you made some interesting documentaries and a feature-length documentary about, and not enough is talked about this, the 1950, and really not enough, painful, not enough, because that movie scared the hell out of me because I saw it as a young kid. The Creature from the Black Lagoon. So you
Hmm.
did that documentary. What lessons, when you did that, did you learn about like directing and filmmaking from that? And that was with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, Benicio del Toro was one of the on-camera interviews that we had. There were a bunch, obviously, and then Keith David did the voiceover. Barbershop. The Thing. He was in The Thing. He's famous for that too. And he's done it. He's done a lot. So two two of the main sort of directing and producing things that I learned. One was the involvement in the script for the director is really, really important. And if you're working with somebody who wrote the script and they're open to that, you can have a really fruitful, positive kind of experience, and you end up with something that is greater than the sum of its parts, right? And the second thing I learned is how important, and this is not sexy at all, not interesting at all, maybe for some people, but the importance of paperwork and the chain of title in documentary filmmaking. You have to have personal releases from everybody that's going to be on camera. You have to have location releases. You need to have the approval to use the background posters that you're going to use if you're using them for copyrighted material. There's some leeway as a documentary filmmaker where you can use it because copyright does protect you and actually encourages creating a new work from an original work. But that is, for judges and lawyers, right, to figure that out. So for you as a filmmaker, your job is to make sure you have all of the paperwork, all of the chain of title so it's clear because there is no distribution without that. There is no distribution. You can find some streamers that'll put your stuff up now in 2026 and you don't have the proper, paperwork, right? But generally speaking, none of the big streamers are going to do that. Everybody's going to ask you. So that means you need to get a lawyer. You should have a good entertainment lawyer because you don't know law. I don't know law. You meaning the filmmaker. The filmmaker doesn't know the law necessarily. So find somebody, put whatever investments you can get, whatever money you can get, put some of that into an entertainment lawyer, especially if it's going to be a topic that is going to involve a commercial property like The Creature from the Black Lagoon, or it's a sensitive topic where people are going to talk about sensitive things or personal things. It has to be okay, and that person has to sign a document that says it's okay to use that interview, right? This, for you and I, this might seem logical and it might seem, like a good thing to do, but I've heard many horror stories from an entertainment lawyer about people that did these fantastic documentaries, had great interviews, had access to amazing places and amazing people and amazing stories. And when they brought the documentary to the attorney, because they were ready to go into distribution, the attorney said, "Okay, where's all the chain of title?" And they said, "Chain of what? Don't you have any personal releases?" "No." Do you know how hard it is to go back to somebody after you've interviewed them and get a personal release? Because the first feeling they have is, wait a minute, what's different? Why didn't you do this before? What's wrong? Or worst case scenario, on the Creature Project, on that film, I had personal releases. I learned that lesson very early in the process. So I had a personal release and I went to interview somebody who was a big collector. He's like one of the biggest Creature from the Black Lagoon collectors. He had masks and all kinds of tchotchke, everything, right? It was amazing. And I went into his lair, right, to interview him. And I get everything set up with my director of photography and we get ready to shoot. And he comes over to me and he goes, "Hey, yeah, listen, I was thinking about the interview, and I know you said that there was no money or anything, but I was wondering if there was any way that we could, like there could be some money." And I said, "No, unfortunately there's not. We don't have any money. This is, you're doing this for the love of the creature, right? I mean, you love this film, you love collecting, all of that." "Yeah, yeah, yeah, but you know what? I thought about it and I just don't know. I just don't know if I could do it. I don't think I can do it if there's no money." So I took a pause. I had the personal release that he had signed. So I said to him, "That's okay. I understand. What we'll do is we'll just pack everything up and we'll just take a leave and I'll find somebody to fill in this part of the documentary." There are, as you know, there are a lot of other collectors out there, right? You're not the only one, right? There's this guy over here in California that I'm going to go talk to, and there are a couple of, but it's okay. I understand. And I started to pack things up. Now, I would not have done that if I didn't feel confident that I had sort of crossed all my T's and dotted my I's, and that I did have some other people I could talk to. But I said, you signed this release. You said that you were going to, so you have them sign the release before the interview, not after. Simple things like that, right?
Wow. Wow. You know, um, and the whole legal stuff. You talked about Benicio del Toro. I was in line to be a body double for him. Yeah, I went to Central Casting. Uh,
Really?
yeah, true story. I went to Central Casting, after I did One True Thing with Meryl Streep, and then I auditioned for Waterworlds with Spielberg and Cruise. They called me twice. I turned them down. Big mistake. Big. I wake up every morning and I stare into space. Big mistake that I got to live with. And right after that, I was feeling my oats, so I went to Central Casting in New York and signed up. I was an older guy, and maybe they could use me. And first thing I got was, I think it might have been Ben Stiller was doing some kind of documentary, or a true story. Maybe it wasn't a doc, it was a film on some escape that went up in New York. And
Okay.
I think it was Benicio del Toro. So one night at midnight, I get an email, a text that there's 12 things. If you satisfy these 12 things, you'll be in the running for being a body double. The only drawback was that was a long shoot, and I'd have to be up somewhere, I don't know, in the Buffalo, upstate New York area for a long time in the middle of winter. I had to be up there.
Oh, yeah.
But I looked at all the stuff. He's, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, he's tall.
Yeah, and I'm 6'5". So, although maybe where I failed, and everything else, I don't know, maybe bicep, the whole thing. Where I failed was the circumference of my head. Um, we were just different, and so I didn't get the part. Thank God, because I don't know if I would have done that.
So you're saying your brain was too big, Calvin? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe
Okay.
the casing, not necessarily the brain. The case.
The casing, okay.
I don't know about the brain, but he's where he is, and I'm where I'm at. So
Sure.
I don't know if I got him beat on brains. Anyway, okay. Um, what lessons? I have to try to reel myself in because all I want to do is talk about this movie stuff with you. Um, what lessons have you learned outside of filmmaking that has helped you grow as a creative person?
Um, I think there are a couple. I guess the two main ones that I've learned is that one is, the more that you know yourself, the more you know about yourself, the more successes and the more failures you have, the better you are at helping other people and working with other people, especially in a creative process. So knowing yourself well as anyone can, right, is really helpful in such a collaborative venture as making a film. Short film, I haven't made a feature narrative yet, but the feature doc involved a lot of people. And I think that's one really, really important thing, knowing yourself well. And then the second thing would be you're the one as the director to have the vision, to have the clear vision. And it's not enough to have that vision. You need to be able to communicate that vision. You don't, as a director, have to know every single lens size, every application of a particular lens size, but knowing a little bit about that and being able to talk about it intelligently and creatively with the director of photography will go a long way. That's communication. You don't have to know production design in and out, but you should know something about it. And if you don't know something, then you're relying on people to help you with that. But your job as the director is to communicate what your vision is. The director of photography's job, in my view, is to set up the composition, help you with the lenses, work with the lighting person if you have a lighting person, and all of that. But you're responsible for what's in the frame, and that is communication at its highest, most complex level. And so if you don't have that skill set, that's something to develop. I think if people aren't strong in that area, you either develop those skills or you work on something else. And, mentors can help with sort of helping you define what your strengths are and what you're good at. And not spending a lot of time on something that you really don't have a desire for or a knack for, right? And then the other thing I would add quickly would be I think it's great to follow one's passion, but I think it's better if that passion is something that can turn into a vocation and it can turn into something that can support you, not just creatively and emotionally and in other ways, but can support you financially. And so I think it's good to follow passions, but I think it's also good to also talk to people about those passions and see what can I do with this that might work in my waking life in the world, right? That's not the creative world, but that's in the world. Because there is a way to bridge the art and the craft of it. And I think one of the fun things for me is to figure out how to do that over time and hopefully get better at it, right? Because I'm not just interested in the craft. I'm not just interested in making something that's going to be commercially successful or it's really, really beautifully shot and that's it. That kind of thing. And I think most filmmakers are interested in a variety of that kind of stuff. So communication and knowing yourself really well.
Duly noted.
I think you know yourself really well, Calvin. That's the
Uh,
impression I get.
well, I do and I don't. Uh,
Hmm.
I do and I don't. That's an interesting. Since I've never sat down on a couch with anybody to talk about this stuff, mistake. I should have. Whatever. Anyway, okay. I gotta reel myself in. You give me all this provocative lead-ins, and I got to
You're
reel
very
myself in
kind.
because I want to tap into you, not me. I don't know myself, and I'm continuing to discover things about myself I
We
don't know.
all are. We
That's
all are.
because I had a tortoise in my hair,
You did.
for real.
Nicely done. Nice.
That really was a great, unrehearsed. It just
Unrehearsed.
came
We didn't
out.
practice that one at all.
Not at all. It just came out, and because it's for real, I did have a tortoise in my hair. Um, Tell me a little bit about coming back to The Last Musician, a little bit about the actors and the crew and stuff that worked on this.
Yeah. So I could not have asked, I could have not have begged or cajoled for better actors. So Cottrell Von Thomas plays Ethan. He's a wonderful actor, fairly new to acting. I think The Last Musician was his first short film that he had done. Um, Oliver's played by Eric Rausch, who's a seasoned actor and happens to be, we got very, very lucky, and he happens to be an accomplished pianist as well.
Oh,
So that was helpful. Samantha Rustin, who plays Susan, she's fantastic. And Ted McGinnis played Frank. And Ted did a great job with Frank. So it's all of those people. We did backstage. We went through backstage and looked at lots of reels, lots of different actors, and the timing just worked out. Um, and and I was as a director, my actors came to set prepared. They knew the lines and they had ideas. And so what I had to do was make sure that we got the shots that we needed for our day, the scenes that we needed. And if something absolutely didn't quite work, then we did it again. But that was a rarity. And I let them do their thing. The blocking and that sort of thing, I needed to work on myself and figure out, okay, let me really think about this. I hadn't thought about this enough. I need to think about it more. Because on a short, you don't have a lot of time for any kind of rehearsal. There was no rehearsal built in, and we didn't have the set, for a bunch of days, and so we could rehearse on set. And so all of that was kind of by the seat of our pants in terms of working it out. But we were really efficient. I had a great producer, Ella Evans, who did a fantastic job setting up the day and making sure. And again, this is, if I did not have background in television and video production, and shooting and that kind of stuff, I would have been much more uncomfortable with the speed at which we needed to work in this particular case. We took the time that we needed to get the scenes that we needed to get, but I could move faster and more efficiently, partly because of the technology that we used, but also because I had a comfort level with the technology and the space of a set, even though I'd never been on a film narrative set before. So the actors were just fantastic. I mean, just beautiful performances by everyone.
When you have such a relationship and you're open for collaboration and input, does that air, that feeling of working together, that esprit de corps, whatever, does that contribute to eliciting better performances from them?
I think it does. I think it creates an atmosphere in a short amount of time of trust and confidence that I don't know how this work could get done without it, frankly.
Okay.
And so, you know, one of my most incredible memories of that experience was that when I learned that a couple people were survivors of very serious illnesses, and it was the same illness. And I learned about, they told me this after, right? This wasn't something I knew beforehand. I didn't know. And people do not share that kind of information with you if they don't have a level of trust. To me, it was the highest compliment I could ever ask for, that they were willing to share it. And it was, it was in a particular context and all of that. But this is, I don't know, Calvin, how you can make a film and be happy with the film and enjoy the experience. It's highly stressful for everybody, but still enjoy it if you don't have an esprit de corps. I really don't know.
Okay. So sometimes I wonder about that because I know, I was thinking about John Huston, and although he made a whole bunch of stuff with John Wayne, there was a lot of friction there, and he used to lace into John Wayne. John Wayne was, not an Olivier, or a Brando for sure. Nevertheless, and I always wondered about that if John Huston had been better, warmer, and a coach, like a coach, like Mike Krzyzewski from Duke, a
Right,
coach that can bring out, and I wonder about that, a good coach, who, there's an ingredient, an intrinsic value in a coach that makes a coach, and why they keep winning, and these are magical intrinsic things, and they're there for everybody to partake, but
right.
a lot of people don't. Uh,
Sports is a great analogy, and you can find in the history of sports, you can find many coaches that were classic negative reinforcers. Bobby Knight pops into my mind,
yeah,
Indiana Hoosier, famous Indiana Hoosiers basketball coach, who was a well-known. I saw the guy throw a chair across the
sure.
court.
Yep.
And so he was well known as a negative reinforcer. That was his coaching style and who he was, I think, probably as a human being too, right?
Yeah.
So it's not to say that you can't get a performance with that approach. My point is, for me, that doesn't work as well. And I get better results from whatever team I'm on by being authentic and as kind as I can. But I've had to say things when I had to say them.
Right.
The point is, when I have to say them, people are like, "What is?" I need to listen because whoever this guy is right now, is not the guy we've been working with. So something isn't right. We're doing something wrong, or something needs to be fixed. So it's so rare that I'm from the Midwest, and we typically keep our emotions bottled up anyway, and like we're a duck on water, right? A lot of stuff happening underneath, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've been out on the East Coast for a long time, so I've had to shift a
Yeah.
little bit.
You're an Arizona guy, eh?
I was in Arizona for a while, and originally from Indiana, but then I worked in Arizona in TV and public television for 7 or 8 years.
So you're a Hoosier.
I'm a Hoosier. Yeah.
Wow.
Ultimately, yeah. When you strip everything away, Calvin, I'm a Hoosier.
You're a Hoosier. By the way, you can't take it out of you.
No,
Yeah.
no, they'll try to beat it out of you and you'll still have it. So,
No, you're a Hoosier. Great movie, by the way. I watch that once a month.
oh yeah, that's yeah, one of the greatest, one of the greatest sort of
Absolutely.
Indiana-based kind
Yeah.
of films
True
ever made.
story, true story. And I actually found the real game, the
Oh,
real game
really?
on YouTube because I love that movie so much. And it was rumored. It wasn't rumored. It was spoken about that it's based on a true story. So
Yep.
I found that game. It was a small school called Milan, Milan, a
Yeah.
small school in Ohio, and there was a guy Bobby Plump who sank that last minute
Right.
shot like Jimmy Chitwood did in the movie.
Yep.
And I watched because I'm kind of a fanatic about that. I watched the game. And I marveled because in some ways the game hasn't changed. It has, but LeBron has seen to that,
Yeah.
and Michael has seen
Yeah.
to that. But the movie making of that, oh, I could. I'm so crazy. Little. I could write little stories. There was a scene there when a truck was pulling out. Myra Fleener was pulling out, and Gene Hackman was watching. And as the truck pulled out, it was autumn, and just the way the leaves.
Right.
Oh,
So this is the thing that, that's a great example of the kind of imagery, the kind of cinematic imagery that if you live in a place like that, if you grew up in a town similar to that, as I did, similar to it, not exactly, those kinds of images are just imprinted on your brain. And this is something about cinema that makes it different than any kind of creative pursuit. It
correct,
taps into the stories we have in our heads already in
correct.
some way. And so, what a privilege it is to be able to try to tell that kind of story and connect with a human being in that way. You could never ask for anything more, in my opinion, right? So it's just
So
it's
well,
fantastic to be even to be able to do it. If someday there's a bigger film in my future or a budget or famous actors or whatever, that would be fantastic. But if one person can see something that I've made and walk out and be affected by that in some way, then I feel pretty good. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop. I'm not a one and done kind of guy,
right.
but
Yeah,
it feels pretty good.
yeah. God, I love this discussion that just flows because of your world and my world is just being a viewer and what this stuff has done to me emotionally
Mm.
and sometimes the most random little aspects and little things in a movie that so resonate with me and a lot of it is emanates from the
Right,
craft of
right.
movie making. Uh, did you have a particular good day on the set? Something that stands out?
Well, one good day was when the folks shared with me their recovery experience from such terrible diseases and how, they were back into filmmaking and that was a good day. One day personally that I remember as especially vivid was when, as the director, I had to make a decision on the spot to cut an entire scene. And I was so in love with the script. And to me, everything was connected and it fit together like a perfect little, story. And to cut anything was, verboten. And I just couldn't imagine doing it. But there was a lot going on, obviously, at the time. And it was very busy. And there was nobody there to really tell me what to do. And so I had that moment that every director, I'm sure, has, where you're sort of like, oh, I'm alone in this decision. I have to make it by myself. because nobody is going to go into the director territory of changing the script or cutting the script. And so that's when I locked in the analytical, logical part of my brain. And I just said, okay, let me look at this. And I credit my training academically for this and how I was raised to be able to do this, where I just sort of said, okay, well, if I take this section out and I take this section out, I can still link, and because I know how to edit, I can link the first part of that last part of that first scene to this next part. Okay, I can take this whole section out. And I was able to do it in a short amount of time. We didn't lose anything in the day, but that was very memorable because I can literally now I can see myself, Calvin, looking at myself, leaning down at the script with people staring at me around, waiting for me to make the decision. That was something. And I
Awesome.
know for some people when they hear this, so they're like, oh, come on, suck it up, man. It wasn't that tough. But in my mind, in my memory of it, it's very dramatic, right?
Yeah. For a lot of people, the process of creation is very daunting. Do you have strategies to overcome some of those barriers?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the main one I have is just lots and lots of preparation. Just preparing as much as I can, making sure I have a shot list, making sure I work with the AD on a shot list that makes sense because, I might be thinking drones and it may be a ridiculous request, or we might not be able to get drones approved in that particular area. There could be lots of reasons why something that I want won't work from a technical standpoint. So having a sense of, not wanting to be efficient, but always wanting to tell the story in the best way cinematically and not be tempted to just rush things. And so preparation helps with that because then I'm not put into a position of having made a decision that was not a good decision to start with and having to stick with it because even though it was prepared, wasn't prepared right or wasn't organized correctly. So that stuff that's really uninteresting for a lot of people, and I get it, which is like a producer's mindset. I tend to want to spend a lot of time on that. I have like 50 or 60 questions that I ask about each character, and I answer those questions for myself. Then I would send that to the actors, and the actors can decide to take all of it, some of it, or none of it. And this idea of all, not, some, or none, I learned from my producing partner on this project, Ella. I think it's a great way to be, especially when you're talking about creative stuff. If you think all, some, or none, then you're always prepared to pivot, to add something, to keep what you have, that kind of thing. But if you're not prepared, if you're not organized, if you haven't done your due diligence and then hired people or working with people who feel similarly about the importance of that, then it's just really hard. It's much harder than it should be.
So it sounds like the whole preparation is way more involved than the actual filming.
Well, you're supposed to, yeah, you're supposed to be, the ideal is that I prepared it within an inch of its life. And when I go out on set, if everybody else is prepared and ready to do their job, right? Then we can relax and creatively be free. What constrains the creativity, in my opinion, is when all of that other stuff is not taken care of properly. And so now that's on my mind. That's on everybody else's mind. We only have an hour to shoot this, and we're trying to do 3 scenes. It's ridiculous, right? It's a ridiculous thing, right? So the preparation, the organization, the good the good help that you have to make the vision, that frees you up to take chances and do things differently when you're done with what you planned, right? It's, I mean, I think everybody understands the logic of it, but if you're not trained or you're not sort of in the habit of doing that when it comes to production, any kind of production, if that's not your go-to space from the jump, then it's really hard to sort of learn how to do that. So if you can't learn how to do it and you're just about the image and you're just about the cinema part of it, that's fine. Then hire somebody who does do that. And listen to them when they say you only have time for one more take. Just listen.
Listen,
Just listen.
listen. Um, okay, so we kind of touched on this a little bit in those hours we spent before we went on air. So science fiction often reflects current trends in the world that we live, the anxieties of our world. What what current trends influenced what you've done in this film and the world you created in this film? And I don't necessarily know if I want to hear the answer.
Well,
Well,
you
uh,
know, I
shit.
think, the obvious one is this theme of surveillance that, I, what I live daily, what you live daily, what everyone is involved in their daily lives. Surveillance is a big part of it. And not even the obvious surveillance like drones and that kind of thing, but there's all kinds of surveillance going on. So that's a major reflection in this film. I think the dynamics of this particular family probably reflects some of my own experience in a little bit, not an extreme way, but a little bit of that is in it, I'm sure. Um, and I think a theme that maybe is not as obvious, but it's something that I think is a real problem in the United States is essentially when people in the United States reach a certain point in their lives, we oftentimes just abandon them and don't help them and encourage them in their lives if they've lived a full life and we just kind of say, okay, well, that group we're just not going to pay attention to anymore. It's not that way in every country, but in the United States, we do not value um, human beings in a way that to me it seems like we should, and that should be sort of the normal default position, and not just folks that have reached a certain seasoned part in their life, like me and other people, but other just along the lines of race and gender and all of it. And I'm not sure what is wrong because this is not a state that is new. This is not a situation that's new. This has been going on for a long time. And so this idea that humanity and the value of human connection is not celebrated, that's a theme as well in the film.
Okay.
It's not something, Calvin, that people are going to sit and walk out and feel fantastic about, but they are going to have some questions. They are going to wonder what's going on, what happened here. And that is a question we should ask in our daily lives. What is going on?
Yeah. Oh, oh, yeah. And it's funny. In my to promote uh, in this
Hmm.
10 things I learned from the billionaire. Uh, I worked for a billionaire for 25 years. One of the lessons that was discussed, and I write about it, is this area between these two earlobes and this whole structure. Uh, um, we talked about my structure with Benicio, but this whole structure, in order to get a message across that gets fully absorbed, and I call it getting stuck in the quicksand. You got to repeat something 10 times. So you got to give somebody a message. I don't know what the time period is. Nevertheless, you got to give somebody a message 10 times so that it gets stuck. So, you got a powerful message about surveillance, and people need to see that, another 9, 10 times to begin to understand the place where we're heading.
Yeah, and I think that, the thing that works against that is a very sort of superficial but powerful thing. Two things, speed and efficiency. And in the United States, we have always celebrated speed and efficiency as the end goal, right? We've done that with the industrialization. We've done that with all kinds of commerce-based ventures. And speed and efficiency are the enemy of considered thought and careful choice making. They are the enemy of that. So anything that makes your life faster or more efficient, the from the jump, I've now said that 3 times, from the jump, you should be suspect of whatever that thing is because there is a trade-off. There's either a trade-off in the amount of information you're being given, in the way it's being presented to you, in how it's packaged or sort of structured to make you think, feel, or do something specifically, right? So it should be a space that you don't trust immediately, and that's okay. That's okay.
Okay. Um, Imagine a world where you have unlimited resources. What kind of movie would you make? We talk
Okay.
about money.
Okay. It would be a feature film. It would be some kind of science fiction feature film, right? It would engage with AI in the most healthy, public serving way possible at the time, right? And everybody would be paid what they think they should be paid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really nice.
That's my
Really nice.
plan, Calvin.
Uh, really nice. I like that. Uh, Although we could talk about the last thing a lot, but we won't. Um, uh, and you suggested this. It's not me. This is you. Any experiences in your personal life that have helped uh, inform you in some of the choices you made professionally? Has anything guided you?
Yeah, but I'm a late bloomer, and so I was guided late. I should have been guided earlier
Yeah.
by the same instincts, but I wasn't for whatever reasons, right? Um, but I think my instinct to want to help people, my instinct to want to work in collaborative environments, but also have my own space, right? My instinct to constantly be learning. Those things have helped to put me in the position that I am in now to be able to create and make things. So I look back on my life and I've always been creating something, but I always chose until, maybe a decade ago or more. I always chose, okay, I got to be able to make money too, right? Because I was always concerned about that for reasons that we don't need to go into here, but maybe someday we will. I always felt like I needed to make money. It needed to have the value associated that society associates with doing things, right? So it was through the lens of society that I was operating. Now I'm not so concerned about that. And so I've grown, not surprisingly, I've grown creatively and professionally, and it's from taking risks at a point when I didn't expect to take risks, which makes it scarier, right? But much more rewarding when it works out.
Okay. Nicely said. By the way, that late bloomer thing, I felt you were looking right at me, right through me. Talk about late bloomers. I'm writing as I approach octogenarian status.
We are a rare breed. We
Really
are a
rare
rare
breed.
breed.
The creativity and all the stuff I'm doing doesn't get much later. It can't be much later than, on my side here. But I don't even focus on that because I don't, the age is just a number. It just is. Um, my last provocative question, which I'll throw at you, is one of my favorite questions. that I borrowed from, I want to say a good friend, but she's not, but a hero of mine, Barbara Walters, uh,
Mm,
an absolute total hero of mine. And they'll be writing about her for 100 years to come. We're not even grasping, we're not even grasping what she was.
right. That's
We
right.
get little tidbits, this, and this, but anyway, all right. So here goes, Matt Crick. I sound like Ralph Edwards. This is your life. Do you remember that show?
I I remember seeing reruns of it.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good enough. All right. It's good. This is your life.
Okay.
I'm
All
Ralph
right.
Edwards. He's the microphone. Blah blah. Anyway, I always like this question. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with, and it could be a couple people. There's no rules here.
Living or dead, I would like to spend a day with Gandhi.
Wow.
I know that sound, maybe a lot of people say that, but I think it would be incredible to spend a day with someone like that because I think the peace and the calm and the perspective on the world would just be so different and well needed, you know,
Oh, oh, oh.
well needed.
Nicely said. Nicely done. What a nice way to wrap
Hmm.
this amazing, spending an amazing day with you, really, which is what this
Thank you.
comes.
I
No,
appreciate it. I enjoyed speaking with you. It
this
was
was
great.
absolutely amazing, and um, you filled my senses with a lot of stuff, and of course, I now want to grab you back and put you on this little Casablanca team, and
Anytime,
you've
anytime.
agreed to do that, and we can also explore other things in movies. I think people need to grasp a lot of where movies came from and some of the movies that are, in my opinion, that are legacies to mankind. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for this, and such good luck with the last musician.
Thank you.
Uh,
I appreciate it.
yeah, yeah, it is about as provocative and timely and necessary, really, as they come.
Well, I hope that this is the moment when the world has come around to our our little film and our perspective on things, and that can help be a connection for people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually, without having seen it, to me, I put this into a rare class of Orwellian worlds.
It is a little bit Orwellian, and I suppose I hadn't thought about it, but I suppose there was definitely some influence from 1984,
Yeah, yeah.
on that, not just the book, but the film itself, but also Brazil would be some. I've seen the film Brazil many times, and I'm a big Terry Gilliam fan, and sort of his satire and especially film composition and storytelling in that film were really impactful on me, and I hadn't really thought about it until just now.
Boom. There we go.
There we go.
Evoking,
Yes.
evoking. That's what we've done. So I'm going to stop recording. You'll be back for sure. We'll do
Great.
stuff together. We got some stuff to do. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and
Thank
only
you.
good luck. I'm going to
Thanks.
stop recording. Don't leave. We'll do a wrap. I love that term, wrap.